what would you say to Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene if they use this excuse that Israel has a right to do what they have to do because they're wiping out terrorists? Because I don't understand when they start speaking this language, what's the difference between a terrorist and a murderer? Israel murders a lot more citizens, a lot more Palestinians than Palestinians murder Israelis. Please go right ahead.
First of all, we have to bear in mind that even if what you're saying is true, not you, I'm speaking now to Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Let's say everything you say is true, okay? Now, Israel has announced that in order to cure this problem, to correct this problem, they are going to commit a genocide against the people of Gaza. That's the announcement, not by trivial figures, not by marginal figures, by the defense minister and the prime minister. Israel has embarked on a genocide in Gaza. So I would ask Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene a very simple question. Do you support starving to death 1 million Gaza children? Do you support that? That's Israel's, it's not a secret plan. We don't have to infer the plan. We don't have to connect any dots because there are spaces in the reasoning. It's right out there. So I ask Matt Gaetz, I ask Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I ask all the other people who you're going to bring to my attention now, or cite for me. Do you support? Because you're giving blanket support to Israel. That's what you're doing. You're giving blanket support to Israel. Barack Obama said today, we support Israel in dismantling Hamas. That's what he said. Now, Israel has announced, Mr. Barack Obama, Nobel Peace Prize winner, Israel has announced exactly how it's going to go about dismantling Hamas. How is it going to go about it? What is it going to do? It's going to deny the people of Gaza any food, water, fuel, or electricity. That's what they're going to do. So I want to know, Mr. Obama, do you support the extermination of the Palestinian people in Gaza? Because that's what it means in practice. When you give blanket support to Israel, you are giving blanket support to the extermination of the Palestinian people. So you have to accept responsibility for your words. Secondly, if you end the blockade of Gaza, which you have to under international law, because under international law, the blockade constitutes a form of collective punishment. Mm-hmm. So it's illegal under international law. If you end the blockade of Gaza, from my point of view, there's no reason to suppose that the people of Gaza are like every other person on God's earth, and that they will seek out all sorts of opportunities to improve their lives. Now, you might say, oh, that sounds so rosy, and we're talking about Islamic terrorists. Yeah, I could be wrong. But then the people of Gaza will have the opportunity, as they did in 2006. They voted out the Palestinian Authority, and they voted in Hamas. And there was no reason to suppose that if they had been allowed to carry on democratic elections in an ordinary life, that they simply would have said, we don't want Hamas anymore because they're messing things up for us. They weren't given the chance. The day after the results of the election, Israel immediately imposed and then the EU and the US went along with the brutal blockade on Gaza. They were never given the chance. So I would say the main concern now, because you spoke to me earlier, not that I'm trying to end it, but I want to, convey something practical to your audience or our audience. That is, the main goal has to be to end that illegal, that criminal, that immoral, that godforsaken blockade of Gaza, and let the people live finally. Let them breathe finally.
Yeah.
And then we see what happens.
I would hope that something like that could happen, and I think that's a great suggestion. But we have politicians, Professor Finkelstein, like this. Nikki Haley, listen to what she has to say.
But let's step back, because I want the American people to kind of take this in for a second. Just imagine that here the Israelis woke up and communities were bombarded. Families were murdered. Women and children were taken hostage, dragged through the streets. The elderly were taken. All of this has happened in front of everyone, on top of thousands of rockets that hit Israel. This should be personal for every woman and man in America. Why? Because when they did this surprise attack, when they took these hostages, when they murdered these families, they were celebrating. And what were they celebrating? They were saying death to Israel, death to America. This is not just an attack on Israel. This is an attack on America, because they hate us just as much. And what we have to understand is this is the reason that we have to unite around making sure our enemies do not hurt our friends. America can never be so arrogant to think we don't need friends, just like we needed them on 9/11. That's why Ukraine needs us when Russia's doing this. That's why Israel needs us when Hamas and Iran are doing this. And I'll say this to Prime Minister Netanyahu, finish them. Finish them. Hamas did this. You know Iran's behind it. Finish them. They should have hell to pay for what they've just done.
So, Professor Finkelstein, that is not the only person, because we have this gentleman over here, Lindsey Graham, another person who is not only saying, this is about terrorists coming in, and, the same lines again from Nikki Haley. Their freedom is tied to our freedom. This is not an attack on Israel. This is an attack on us. But then we have other establishment Republicans that are drawing lines in the sands when it comes to geopolitical matters, talking about, well, we're going to make sure that we hold Saudi Arabia to account. They can't just say whatever. They have to condemn Hamas. Even Blinken was waving his finger at the Chinese as if he was going to get them to go along with it. But listen to what Lindsey Graham has to say, and then I would like your opinions, because this, once again, this type of rhetoric and this manufacturing of consent, especially from a controlled media, when a lot of our information has not been able to get out, has not been able to been, publicized. I mean, I know there's shadow bans on anybody who speaks out against the state of Israel. That's been like that for quite some time. I think the first people to ever get censored on the intranet were people who were speaking on behalf of the Palestinians and against Israel. But listen to this real quickly and then give me your statement, because how do we push back against this rhetoric when you say, let's lift the blockade? We have guys like this saying we can't do that because then they're going to just commit more murder. Listen.
So I've been on the phone all day to the Mideast, and I've told our allies and people with connections to Iran, what I would do, I would tell Iran that if Hezbollah attacks Israel, we're going to come after you, the Iranians, and have a coordinated effort between the United States and Israel to put Iran out of the oil business by destroying their refineries. There are 4 major refineries in Iran. They're fixed targets. If Hezbollah attacks Israel, I would make Iran pay a heavy price.
I don't know if you've heard, Professor Finkelstein, of the USS Liberty, but it almost seemed like that particular attack when Israel fired upon an American vessel, killing 30-something odd sailors, and then turning around and say, oops, it was a mistake. I don't think it was any mistake whatsoever. I think they wanted to sink that vessel and draw America into war. the same way that Lindsey Graham seems to be trying to draw, along with Israel, they seem to be wanting to draw America into war against Iran. But we know with Russia's relationship with Iran, all hell could break loose, and the next thing you know, it's World War III. Please, your opinions.
Well, first of all, the Tulsi Gabbard. I want to get to the question you just mentioned. It's very important. But first, Tulsi Gabbard.
Should we put up her statement for you real quick?
You just read it. You just heard her, so it's fine.
Gotcha.
So, first of all, what Israel witnessed on that morning, Palestinians witnessed many times.
That was Nikki Haley, by the way, we played.
Excuse me, Nikki Haley. Excuse me. I don't have the, I'm not wearing my glasses.
My bad.
Nikki Haley. So, the Palestinians have witnessed that many times, what Israel witnessed on the morning a couple of days ago. Each of those operations, what was the result? We have huge numbers of human rights reports. Each time Israel entered Gaza, Operation Cast Lead, Operation Protective Edge, and many operations in between, they targeted homes. They targeted hospitals. They targeted mosques. They targeted children. That's all voluminously documented. I'm talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of human rights reports, which I've read. Thousands of pages documenting attacking children, targeting mosques, targeting schools, targeting ambulances, targeting hospitals. 350 children killed in one operation, 550 children killed in another operation. So, Nikki Haley, if you're so concerned about what Israel experienced on that morning, where is the concern for the fact that the people in this concentration camp have constantly, repeatedly had to bear witness to the same magnitude of atrocities? Well, actually, much smaller. The Israeli atrocities were much smaller. The atrocities committed against Israel were, as of now, much smaller than what happened in Gaza. The second thing is, it's a simple question for me. It's called responsibility of your words. She said, finish them off. That's her words.
Scary.
Finish off. Now, who is the them? She says it's Hamas. Okay. Israel has said, announced how it's going to finish off Hamas. It's announced its plan. The war plan is out there. It's going to deny the 2.1 million people of Gaza any water, fuel, food for a long time. So Nikki Haley is advocating, in effect, the extermination of the people of Gaza. As to Lindsey Graham, there seems to be, I think, a lack of, there's such an arrogance and bravado, and so completely lacking any sense of how quickly, if any normal person acted on the statements that Lindsey Graham is making.
Yeah.
What will happen? I think that there's not even, I don't know. the whole thing would just spiral out of control. Do you know why Israel has not attacked Hezbollah in Lebanon? It wants to. You know why it is not?
Because it got its butt kicked in 1982?
Oh, it had its butt kicked in 2006.
Yeah, more recent.
2006 too, right? Yeah.
However, that's not the only reason. It's reported that Hezbollah has amassed, now I don't know if the numbers are right. I'm just telling you, reported. They've amassed something on the order of 100,000 missiles. And those missiles, the head of Hezbollah, Sayed Nasrallah, has said they can and they will reach Tel Aviv. And there are certain targets in Tel Aviv, if they are hit, and Sayed Nasrallah has already mentioned them by name, if they are hit, you're going to have a catastrophe on a scale that's completely unimaginable. So, when this imbecile starts making statements like that, anybody who cares about humanity, including Israeli humanity, anyone who has a jot of feeling for any humanity would tell Mr. Lindsey Graham what Claire Daly told Ursula von der Leyen, and I'll quote her: "If you have nothing constructive to say, shut up."